In the vast expanse of the horror genre, few of the movies can put the fear and dread in you as effectively as being lost in the woods. I recently watched the series, Yellow Jackets, and it gave me an idea for a list video. Yellow Jackets is about a group of high school girls that go through a plane crash and then are stranded in the middle of the woods for 18 months with nothing but each other. So for this list, I am going to do 10 terrifying horror movies that are set in the wilderness or the woods that I recommend for anyone that enjoys these survival movies. There won't be any spoilers in this video, so nothing will be ruined, and I will also put the timestamps for each movie in the description below along with any streaming services the movies are offered on if they are. With that being said, here we go. Number 10. The Blair Witch Project. 1999. One of the most famous movies ever made about getting lost in the woods was the 1999 hit The Blair Witch Project. Shot on an extremely tiny budget, this ended up as the movie that launched the popular found-footage horror movie genre, although the imitators hardly ever reached the level of terror in this groundbreaking film. The movie featured a group of young indie filmmakers heading out into the woods to explore local legends of the Blair Witch they have heard around town. However, what resulted was the group getting lost in the woods and then realizing something was out there tracking their every move. What made this movie so creepy was that when you watched it, it felt like it was real and not just a movie with actors. You felt you were actually watching a group of kids that just went through a tragic experience and were never heard from again. The Blair Witch revolutionized the horror genre with the found-footage approach because of how raw and desperate the characters felt throughout. The film's marketing campaign, which cleverly suggested the footage was real, added to its mystique and terror, making it an unforgettable experience in horror cinema. Highly recommend this one if you have never seen it before. Number 9. Eden Lake. 2008. Eden Lake is a British horror movie that sees a teacher that is going to school for nursing go to a remote lake in the English countryside with her longtime boyfriend. When they get there, they see a new development being built and signs about not entering, but they enter anyway, and it's their biggest mistake and they will definitely regret ever entering. When they run into some unruly and just brutally hateful teens, they find themselves in mortal danger. Their car goes missing and soon someone starts to hunt the young couple down all throughout the woods. Eden Lake masterfully taps into contemporary fears of societal breakdown and the loss of any kind of humility, delivering a harrowing narrative set against the frightful backdrop of the English countryside turned evil. Its depiction of escalating violence and the raw, unflinching portrayal of survival against the seemingly juvenile yet deeply malevolent threat strikes a chord with the primal fear of being hunted by teenagers. The movie is scary, and while it does rely a little too much on the fear of the young people, it does its job well, although Eden Lake has a frustrating brutal ending, so just be prepared for that. Number 8. Wolf Creek. 2005. In this creepy Australian thriller, 3 young people are hiking in the Australian outback when they're unlucky enough to meet the infamous Mick Taylor, one of the most twisted psychopaths to grace the big screen in years. Mick is a guy who did some hunting at one time, is pretty good with a rifle, and is a survivalist with some possible military training in his background. We're not really sure of much else. All we know is that at some point he took up hunting people for his own amusement, and found out he was quite good at it, and enjoyed it way too much to stop. The 3 young people will soon be in for the fight of their lives whenever Mick captures them and holds them hostage out at his house in the middle of the outback. What makes the film frightening is how realistic and plausible the story is, probably because it is loosely based on serial killers, Bradley Murdoch and Ivan Milat. Wolf Creek is brutally violent, and will make your skin crawl at points, and it never gives the audience any time to catch their breath or to feel any sort of hope for the young characters. This movie is meant for horror fans who desire a tense scare that will stick with them long after the movie ends. Number 7. The Ritual. 2017. The Ritual follows a group of men heading out for a trip to a popular Swedish jungle after one of their friends dies in a robbery, and they are doing the hike in loving memory of him. However, while they are out, they realize something might be following them, realizing they're all in grave danger. What makes The Ritual so interesting is that it seems the forest is changing while they are there, like the maze in The Maze Runner. The Ritual ingeniously intertwines grief, guilt, and the supernatural, elevating it above typical horror fare. The film dives deep into the psychological turmoil of its characters, set against the hauntingly beautiful yet menacing backdrop of the Swedish forest. The forest acts not just as a setting but as a reactant for the unfolding horror. While they seem to be heading in the right direction, they always get turned back around one way or another. This forest, seemingly violent and malevolent, manipulates their reality, creating an ever-tightening grip around the protagonists, blending Norse mythology and modern horror to a chilling effect. This specific mechanic adds a twist to the Lost in the Woods genre because it almost seems the woodland itself was out to get them. Will any of them make it out of the woods alive? Number 6. It Comes at Night. 2017. It Comes at Night is a post-apocalyptic horror movie about a disease that has wiped out most of the world, thanks COVID. The movie has a slow burn pacing as it follows a family living deep in the woods, hiding from everyone that is sick so they don't get the disease and die as well. Things go badly when other survivors find them and end up possibly bringing the disease with them. It Comes at Night masterfully crafts its terror not from the dangerous disease itself, but from the suspenseful tension, paranoia, and fear of contamination that it instigates among the survivors. Set against the claustrophobic backdrop of a dense forest and an isolated cabin, the film explores the psychological depth of its characters, faced with the ultimate dilemma of trust versus survival in a post-apocalyptic world. As a story of frightened people deep in the wilderness tormented by all outsiders, it works well and is a terrifying tale of survival. Will any of the people living in the cabin stay disease-free by the end of this one? Number 5. Backcountry. 2014. Much was made of the brutality and naturalism of the bear attack sequence in Leonardo DiCaprio's The Revenant in 2015, but a year earlier, little-seen Canadian wilderness horror Backcountry delivered an even more gore-streaked recreation of a similar incident, this time involving 2 people instead of just one. Backcountry is the story of Alex and Jen, 2 lovers who think they are untouchable of any wrongdoings, when they head into a national park forest with more unearned confidence than sense, and then run directly into a particularly vicious black bear. Unrepentant in its brutality and realism, Backcountry chronicles both the ill-advised trek out into the wilderness, and the incredibly painful fight to crawl back to the safety of civilization. Featuring smart subversions of an expected deliverance or straw dogs-type plot, Backcountry instead becomes a film about a relationship weathering an impossible situation, along with incredibly bloody and disturbingly realistic scenes of injury and suffering. This one isn't your feel-good Wednesday watch, because it does a masterful job at illustrating the raw power the wilderness can have. Number 4. Dog Soldiers. 2002. What makes Dog Soldiers so entertaining is that it takes the idea of being lost in the wilderness and then incorporates werewolves into it as well. As a result, Dog Soldiers is one of the best werewolf movies that I remember seeing in quite some time, not that there is much competition. Directed by Neil Marshall, a group of soldiers is dropped into the woods for a routine training exercise. However, while in the woods with no way out, they come across a home where a family of werewolves live. The isolation of the woods becomes a nightmarish battleground where the soldiers, trained for human conflict, must adapt to an unforeseen enemy far beyond their comprehension. Marshall's direction ensures that the film maintains a gritty realism even with the supernatural, emphasizing the terrorizing fear of being hunted by an entity that embodies both the familiar and the grotesquely otherworldly. The soldiers' struggle against the werewolves offers a compelling exploration of courage, brotherhood, and the human spirit's resilience in the face of the ultimate predator. Number 3. Wrong Turn. 2021. I could have used either Wrong Turn from 2003 or The Wrong Turn from 2021 as they both feature a group that gets lost in the woods and then are preyed upon by a sadistic group. Let's not talk about the Wrong Turn movies 2 through 8 though, because those are just laughable entertainment. In the 2021 iteration, Scott Shaw is searching for his missing daughter Jen, who is hiking the Appalachian Trail with a few of her friends. The small-town locals don't seem to care. 6 weeks earlier, Jen and her 5 young friends suddenly get a flat tire while heading to a hiking trail. They arrive at the small town to start their hike and it goes downhill from there. Once they actually make their way into the forest, they are captured by a cult-like tribe that lives in the mountains, and they call themselves the Mountain People. Jen has to find a way to get her and her friends free, or else she will be stuck with the Mountain People forever and will never see her dad again. This movie is a good watch, and if you haven't seen it, don't expect a movie like the 2003 version as the plot is pretty different, but it's still a good horror flick to watch if you like the genre. Number 2. The Witch. 2015. A colonial New England family of 6 is banished from their community and heads into the wilderness to build their homestead and fend for themselves. When their infant son inexplicably vanishes, it's apparent immediately that something unspeakable has happened. Daughter Thomason is held responsible for the child's disappearance by her mother, Catherine, though we know the horrible truth. With food scarce and the crops dwindling, the family becomes increasingly desperate. When eldest son, Caleb, goes missing, only to return in an altered state, the situation gets far worse. The Witch is set in a time when life was a continual struggle for survival, and superstition filled the air. The film is impeccable, capturing the look, feel, and language of the 17th century. The descending shroud that overtakes the family is like a killing fog, slowly choking out all light and life, until the brutal, frenzied finale. Highly recommended for lovers of slow-building, dread, paranoia-filled, supernatural horror films that also takes place in the secluded woods like the others on this list. Number 1. The Grey. 2011. Coming in at number 1 on this list is the 2011 survival thriller The Grey, starring the wonderful Liam Neeson. A crew of Alaskan oil drillers find themselves in the wilderness after their plane suddenly crashes in the middle of the forest. As the crew tries to make a camp around the wreckage of the plane, they discover that they are being watched by some ferocious animals. The plane has crashed near a wolf pack, causing these creatures to aggressively attack the survivors as they are protecting their territory. As the wolves follow them, John Otway convinces all of the survivors that they have to work together or else the wolf pack will take them out one by one with no resistance. Separated from society, we start to see these characters for who they are instead of what they were made to be by their circumstances. Some of the weaker survivors end up getting killed by the wolves, and we all know the movie is going to come down to Liam Neeson versus the alpha of the wolf pack. It is a very tense and exciting movie. The plot is good, the action scenes are excellent, and Liam Neeson's acting is sublime. I highly recommend it. Well, that is it for this list. Any other wilderness movies that should make the list? Thanks for watching.